Hi, my name is Robert Chelle with Chelle Law, and my firm assists physicians with employment contract issues. Today I'm going to talk about whether a physician contract can be terminated early. The short answer is yes. In 99% of physician contracts, you can terminate the agreement early. So let's kind of hit the basics of how that happens. So in any contract, there's going to be a term length, meaning the employment agreement lasts for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Anything beyond that's pretty rare. Also, more and more, I find physician contracts are what we call evergreen, meaning there's no fixed term. They just continue on until they are terminated by one of the parties. So really, the only way a contract could be terminated early would be if there is a fixed term. Let's just use an example as a physician signs an employment agreement, and then it states the term of the agreement is 2 years. And then in almost any contract, there'll be some kind of renewal clause that just states after the initial term, the contract will then automatically renew for a 1-year period. That's pretty standard. So if a physician wanted to terminate the contract prior to the 2-year term, they would have to follow the terms in the contract under the termination section. So in the termination section, it will state all of the ways that the contract can be terminated. So one, if it was a 2-year term, and then it had some kind of automatic renewal clause, there'll also be language that states the physician, or the employer, if they intend not to renew the agreement, have to give notice to the other party. That way, if they give notice, the contract just ends at 2 years, and that's it. So that I wouldn't consider that early. That would just be the initial term ends, and that's it. Parties go their separate ways. There's also an ability to terminate a contract early through mutual agreement. So maybe there's some kind of problem between the employer and the physician. It's a cultural, there's some cultural clashes, personality conflicts, whatever. And they just say, you know what, it's not working out. Let's just move on our own ways. Then they could just agree, all right, here, let's end the contract and move on. Another way the contract can be terminated early, and this is obviously the most common way, is without cause termination. So that means either party can terminate the contract for any reason with a certain amount of notice to the other party. So the standard amount for a without cause termination notice is usually 60 or 90 days. Anything above that should be a red flag or a concern for a physician for a couple of reasons. One, let's say a contract has a 180-day notice to terminate the contract without cause. One, if it's that high of a notice period, then usually that means that employer has had a hard time retaining people. So they've put in a giant notice period to kind of dissuade people from leaving. Another reason why that's bad for a physician is once notice is given, the relationship changes between the physician and the employer. You're no longer in the long-term plans. You're not rowing in the boat together. There can be kind of an awkward relationship after the physician gives notice. It just changes. And so the longer that the physician has to stay with the employer under those circumstances, the worse it is for the physician. So without cause termination, ideally, it would be a shorter period of time. Now, there has to be some notice required, once again, for a couple of reasons. One, as a physician, there are continuity of care concerns. And so if a party could just come up and say, hey, you're fired, don't come back tomorrow, there has to be a plan in place if a physician is leaving an employer to transition those patients to another provider, or to have to, refer them out to other physicians in the area. It's specialty dependent as well. Maybe in primary care, it's not, that kind of urgent of an issue to move the patients on to someone else. But let's say it's in psychiatry, you have some very delicate patients. They absolutely are in need of medications or bridge scripts, or someone to take over their care. That notice period gives both parties, the physician and the employer, time to arrange the transition to others. So that's why the without cause termination is in there in the first place for a physician. So that's how a contract can be terminated early. So yes, it absolutely can be terminated early. If there is no language that allows the physician to terminate the contract without cause, they have to stay for a fixed term. Once again, enormous red flag. In those situations, as I stated before, usually it's because the employer has had a tough time retaining physicians. And no physician wants to be in this, in a situation where they just hate going into their job. They don't feel safe practicing. It's just a bad environment, and they're stuck for a period of time without being able to get out of it. Really, the only situation that requires kind of a fixed term without either party being able to terminate the agreement without cause is under a J1 waiver employment agreement. It must be 3 years. And in that situation, usually can only be terminated for cause, meaning either party breached the agreement. That's about the only situation where a fixed term makes sense and there's no without cause termination. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful. If you have any questions, you can always call my firm at the number listed below in the description, or you can reach us through our website, ChelleLaw.com. That's CHELLE law.com. And appreciate you watching the video. Thanks.